What would happen to the Pokemon world if all humans just vanished? That's the question at the heart of Pokemon Pokopia. For 30 years, we've predominantly looked at this franchise through the lens of a trainer. Catch, train, battle. But in the form of spin-offs, we've very occasionally been given a glimpse of a world without combat, a world without conflict. And if you really think about it, this makes a whole lot more sense. Pokopia tells the cozy and refreshing story of a self-built community of Pokemon, and very quickly, a group of friends with distinct interests, tastes, and personalities. And in all honesty, it is astonishing that it took this long for Pokemon Pokopia to emerge. It marries two ideas that should have been smashed together a decade ago. The cozy life sim that Nintendo hardware has been home to for decades, and the world of Pokemon. And Game Freak couldn't have chosen a better co-developer than Koei Tecmo's Omega Force, the team behind the brilliant Dragon Quest Builders 2, and straight off the bat you can see that this is a match made in heaven. So, let's find out if Pokopia is a legendary success or if it's just a Magikarp out of water. You begin the game in a post-apocalyptic Kanto, where you play as a Ditto, but you aren't just a blob, you've transformed into a gormless human shape, specifically that of your former trainer, who has gone missing in a world where humanity has seemingly vanished without a trace. You wake up all alone in a cave, and after choosing your appearance, you run into a Tangrove, a sentient shrub cosplaying as Professor Oak. Together, you step outside to find a desolate voxel-style Kanto region that looks quite different from what you may remember. You start in the ruins of what you'll quickly recognise as Fuchsia City, but it's drought-stricken and reduced to rubble. And your mission, should you accept it, is to bring life back to this land, watering the parched earth and restoring the human ruins left behind, all with the help of other Pokemon you befriend, who are as equally lonely and confused about the lack of humans. It's quite a bleak and ominous premise, but it's surprisingly compelling. There is a genuine mystery to uncover about what happened to the world, and that recovery ties closely into your minute-to-minute tasks, and as you progress through the story and restore the world, the game opens up in the most unexpected of ways. The early progression comes through quests given to you by Professor Tangrove, but as you would expect from a game of this genre, there is no immediate obligation to do any such thing, and that truly is where the beauty lies. Let me just get two things off my chest quickly. First of all, this game is sickeningly cute. The little animations of each Pokemon, the dances, the sad eyes if you take away their toys or bed. And secondly, I'm going to be saying the word habitat a lot. It's the in-game name and those synonyms really sound right. But hey, the core gameplay loop is all about restoration. The game replaces catching your favourite Pokemon with habitat building. Pokemon spawn one at a time, and each habitat can spawn between 1 and 6 Pokemon, as shown when you hover over your habitat decks. Once one spawns, it will claim that habitat as its home until you build that mon a specific house, and then a new one can appear. You don't need to build multiple of the same habitats, it's a smooth, systemic approach. And once they spawn, you'll bring them gifts and build them homes, and in return they will help around the town. That means leading a fire Pokemon to a smelting furnace, assigning Cypher to cut your logs into processed timber, and getting a number of Pokemon to refine bricks or convert other raw materials such as berries into paint. And on the whole, the game does a good job of making almost every Pokemon feel mechanically relevant. They all come with their own preferences, dark spaces, light spaces, certain food types, enclosed shelters and so on, and you can ask them directly what they want. That's the key here, you're never guessing blindly. They will straight up tell you, I'd like a toy, this is too wet, I want a proper house. And you can meet those requests as minimally as you like, or you can go all in. And going back to my comment about how sickeningly cute this game is, you always end up going the extra mile for them. And that's where Pokopia's charm really sits. It's cozy and it's fun and engaging, yes, but it's also systematically deep, surprisingly so. And then you add on top of that the freedom of creativity you can have if you are so inclined. There is so much content on offer here, it's quite baffling. The habitats themselves are presented as small visual puzzles, such as 4 tufts of grass or flowers on their own, and you can track all of these on your habitat decks. One of my favourites was placing a punching bag next to a bench in order to lure out a Hitmonchan. It's these small, quirky yet thoughtful decision choices that just make sense when you think about them, and it really elevates the feel of the game. Call it nostalgia if you want, but I had a smile on my face every time a new mon popped up.
Who's that Pokemon?
Except Bellsprout. He can do one. And once you have the correct set of abilities to complete the overarching task, you can move through the gates to the next map. The main campaign is pushed forward by named Pokemon such as Professor Tangrowth, the Mosslax, who may have slept a little too long, and the Pikachu, this sickly Dickensian fan favourite rodent who ran out of electricity. And they all have their own emotional yet charming backstories that you can't help but attach yourself to. In my 40 odd hours, I have yet to discover all available Pokemon, and I can only imagine more will be added over time. It really is a fantastic foundation for expansion. There are currently 300 Pokemon to discover on the Pokédex, but yeah, I'm sure we are bound to see that expand over time. I think there are currently over 1,000 at this point in the franchise, so be prepared for DLC. But the overall feeling of the game is thoroughly homely, leaning on the UI and style of Animal Crossing for the inventory and crafting, but with far fewer limits, and then the quirky, otherworldly charm of Viva Pinata, which to this day is still an underrated gem. You will earn your currency through quest objectives from the Poké Center, but chances are these will be completed by just playing the game. The main issue is unlocking them, which is simply done by leveling up the environment. Just complete quests, keep the Pokemon happy, and you'll get through it. And it's a great balance that essentially rewards you for just playing the game. And with this, you will gain access to various recipes, gifts, cosmetic bricks and decorations, and so on. But with that in mind, I will talk about a few of the things that aren't perfect. The aiming system, for one, is the most persistent annoyance. Watering uses the traditional plus-shaped 5-block spread, which is somehow both helpful and incredibly unhelpful, depending on what you're trying to do. Terraforming of Rock Smash can target anywhere from 1 to 4 blocks, sometimes unpredictably, and placing the blocks in general can be a pain. And all of this comes down to the lack of an aiming reticule, which makes fine placement fiddlier than it should be. It's not broken or harmful to the game in any major way, it just lacks a bit of polish that the very best in the genre have. While in mouse mode, it is significantly easier though. You get a cursor, and of course you can free aim, in addition to being able to target blocks much further away, and this does feel like a solution. But playing in that mode is quite uncomfortable after a few minutes. Nonetheless, it is a night and day difference, and because of this difference, I often find myself switching from the Pro Controller in order to build. You eventually get used to it, but even after all of these hours, I still find myself getting frustrated from time to time. But with that said, the inclusion of mouse support is a massive bonus, and I absolutely love how you don't have to toggle it on or off. Just tilt the Joy-Con on its side and start using it, and it will instantly recognise that you're trying to use the mouse. But be careful, if any of you are savages out there that just use the Joy-Cons without any grips or anything, sometimes the mouse will start tracking against your fingers, and you'll just start spinning around in circles. It is limited though. You can only really use mouse mode for rock smashing and building, so all of the other transformations are left in the wind. And just a quick note, if you don't want the mouse mode at all, you can go into the settings and turn it off. Another small issue is tracking Pokemon. Occasionally you'll need a very specific Pokemon for a task, and they've just wandered off. You can filter via the Pokédex, but parts of the UI feel a bit dense and vaguely categorized. There were moments when I needed a specific Pokemon to crush berries into paint, or my Torchic to make the bricks, and as I couldn't find them, I just ended up hopping between regions to find a substitute. I did eventually find ways around this. You can go to their home and rub honey on it, and they will come running. Or you can select the Pokemon you want to find in the Pokédex and show it to other Mons, and they will tell you where they last saw them, or if they can fly, they will take you to the lost Pokemon's home. It's not a perfect workaround, but they obviously thought about it, which shows their pedigree. It is manageable, but again, just a minor source of friction at times. And the final peeve is the storage. It's quite bare bones, you just have boxes laying around, and as far as I know, there is no way to label or paint these, so you just end up having to memorize where you kept things, and if you're a hoarder like myself, that's tough. But for anyone with half a brain and a bit of self-control, you'll be fine. And in all honesty, that's about it. Very minor, but they are present. Many of the in-game systems blend in real-world time elements. Those of you that have played Animal Crossing or predatory mobile games will be familiar with this. You can make great progress through the story in a day, but there are soft and hard time blockers. Every time you build a structure, you will either be giving a set time of when it will be finished by, or a vague request to come back the next day. It's not punishing whatsoever, because there are always other things to do, but some people may see it as being gently pushed to pace yourself at times. But I really do just recommend going out to explore the world and fill out your Pokédex. Whether that's charming or mildly annoying depends on your personality type. It does force you to switch focus and occasionally requires you to wait, but you can always use that as an opportunity to explore new mechanics and adventures. You can work around these time skips by simply changing the time on your system settings, and the game will update. Another use for this is to skip to day or night to lure in certain Pokemon that are only available in those times. Look, I'm not going to tell anyone how to play their games, but blasting through the story by doing this kind of defeats the large purpose of the game. But if you want to just nail down the main story, then have at it. I've heard some lunatics calling it cheating, and I'd argue that they need to go and give their head a swivel. It's a single-player, cozy Pokemon game. While I would recommend playing it as it comes, do whatever makes you happiest. That's the only reason to play games. And in regards to performance, while a voxel-based world is never going to be incredibly taxing visually, to their credit, the game runs, for the most part, at a smooth 60 frames per second. In more dense builds, you will notice a few small drops, but for the majority of my playthrough, I encountered minimal issues or noticeable drops. I imagine it would be possible to reduce them and also increase load times with significant builds, as the game will store data of each voxel placed, but it would really need to be pretty significant, and multiple of them. With that said, the game handles terraforming brilliantly, and if small changes are made to the finicky aiming system, it could be top tier. It is especially tricky while watering and smashing specific blocks. Although the art style is visually simple, there is some beauty there. The colours are vibrant and constantly pop, and the lighting and water look great. There are a few sketchy textures here and there, and the strange block colouring in the distance, but we aren't necessarily playing these games for the graphical fidelity. It's about the systems, but the Pokemon's animations are great, the switching between abilities is smooth and responsive, and the small visual nuances when using abilities is minor but appreciated. For the most part, load times are acceptable, but as mentioned earlier, as you build more and more, you will notice slight increases, but it's unlikely you will ever get to the point of it being inconvenient. You'd have to go a bit mad with your builds. It could look better, yes, but after the slop we've been served up for the past 7 or 8 years, I think it's fair to say that Game Freak didn't have too much input in this, and a lot of the praise really should be aimed at Koei Temco's Amiga Force. Now then, onto the co-op play. And this is a contentious one. There was initially massive hype for it, but as the game got closer, it did die down a little. For starters, in the main hub, you can access the co-op menu at the Pokemon Center and allow people to connect to your save. However, for as long as they are there, it is in spectator mode only, so this is essentially just to show off your creativity, or lack thereof, and they can't actually do anything, and this is limited to those with a Switch 2. But the biggest negative for me is that you can't do anything of the main campaigns in co-op, which is kinda lame. Quite soon into your play, you will come across a bridge leading to Pallet Town. Here you can game share with up to 3 other friends and family on Switch 1 or 2, and it's essentially a free-for-all creative mode where other players are given a preset avatar with your current abilities. And this island is saved to your game, so nothing disappears and you can keep going back to it whenever you want. And then you have cloud servers. Basically, think Pokemon Realms. Here, you will create your own or join a friend's existing seed, and you can play multiplayer with friends who own the game. And once you have the seed number, you can go to and from as you please. You don't have to wait for the host to be online, so that aspect of it is nice, as opposed to the classic co-op problem of sorry mate, I can't build because you're not online. No progress or items are carried over to your save from here. Whatever happens on the cloud, stays on the cloud. Overall, these are nice options to have, I'll give you that, but it does leave a little sour taste of not being able to experience the main story with my partner. For the pricing, Pokemon Pokopia is currently on the eShop for £58.99. That's €69.99, $69.99 in the US, and $99.99 in Canada, and it's a 6.2GB download. This was obviously always going to be a premium price, and honestly, it has got everything going for it to warrant that. Brand appeal, genre appeal, exclusivity, and most of all, it's just a really good game. Now obviously this is a Switch 2 exclusive and the physical version is a game keycard, and I genuinely believe that this will be the first post-launch system seller. It just ticks so many boxes. It's Pokemon, it's cute, it's cozy, it's bright and colourful, and it's simple to understand and play. It has near limitless content options and massive potential in the huge Pokemon IP for future editions. It just hits too many demographics. I really do think we are going to see huge sales numbers with this. We've seen some great games on the Switch 2 in the past 9 months, and in my opinion, besides Mario Kart as a launch title, this is the first actual system seller. I don't think Donkey Kong did enough to fully grab non-DK fans, and every other big title has been cross-platform. The Switch 2 has been just screaming out for an exclusive title to convert system sales, and this could just be the one. My 2 most played games on Nintendo Switch are Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, and I sit here with every physically released Pokemon game sat behind me on display, so you could say I came into this with pretty high hopes, but usually with Game Freak, that just means there's even further to fall. But I'm happy to say that Pokopia exuberantly met me at the top. It's part life sim, part town builder, and 100% the most addictive fun I've had on the Switch 2 to date. And if you're talking Pokemon specifically, you would have to go back to 2012 and the Nintendo DS with Pokemon Black 2. And after 50 hours of this quirky spin-off, I can categorically say that I loved every minute of it. Ultimately, Pokemon Pokopia is almost exactly as cozy as we hoped. It's more active and goal-orientated than many of its peers, but it maintains a laid-back, charming atmosphere, and on top of that, it really hits those nostalgia beats. And miraculously, if you have no interest in Pokemon, it's not a prerequisite to fall in love with the game. You always hear these stories about how people who never really enjoyed games ended up getting mega addicted to Animal Crossing or Stardew, and this really feels like that next game. Despite minor annoyances with storage and finicky block placement, it's a real treat that capitalizes on the personalities of its Pokemons in a way that appeals to the creative, the collector, and the enjoyer of cute creatures. It's a breath of fresh air for a 30-year-old franchise and a worthy addition to your new Switch 2 library. And while the main games will never stray away from that battle system, it does make you think if they could really spawn a successful spin-off series without the combat. And I'll tell you, it's a bloody good start, and there is so much potential here, it's genuinely quite exciting. And that just about wraps up today's video. And to date, this was my favourite review to do. Please, let me know your thoughts on this one, as this launch could be huge, bigger than most of us initially thought. It just hits so many demographics, and it really is surprising that it hasn't been done before. But yeah, comment below whether this is a must-buy for you, and all of you Pokemon naysayers, be sure to tell me why and how I'm a shill. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe for more content, but with that said, thanks for spending your time with me today, stay cozy, and yeah, I'll see you around.